All right. I feel like I don't have sound. It didn't make the normal usual. Someone say something.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
It's out.
No. We don't have sound to the TV. Is there a volume? I have a mic now, so that should be okay without phone. I don't know which TV looks well. We'll figure it out. Let's try this. Yeah. Can you guys, is that working? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
There we go. Now we can hear you. I feel like every time I record a class, it's going to start like this. Me figuring out if you can hear me, if I can hear you. And then we're at different offices, so the technology is different everywhere. So, all right. Thanks, guys, for joining. We're just going to jump right in. We got lots of great stuff to go over today. We're going to start with our winners of the contest, however. So we'll start here since we're at Elevate today. So I'm going to bring Sarah up and I'm going to let her release our winner. All right. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. So the winner for Elevate was Sammy. He did 8 open houses.
8 open houses. That's awesome. And we were barely 4 weeks, I'm going to say,
Yeah.
right? So great job. And we will connect you with Jill to connect your prize, to get your prize. So that's awesome. Congratulations. Janice, do you want to announce our winner of Living?
Absolutely. So congratulations, Sammy, first of all. And the winner of Living is Alex.
Yay!
With 4 open
Congratulations,
houses.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations to
How
everybody.
did your open go last night, Alex?
It was less people. I kind of expected it because it was the 3rd open. But I did get a buyer out of it, and there is a very interested family that came through as well. So I talked to their agent this morning, and they'll get back to me with their feedback. So yeah.
Good job.
Awesome. Well, congrats on that and congratulations. And same thing. You can reach out to Jill to figure out how we get you your prize. So great job. And then our winner, and I don't see her on here, so I didn't make you have to attend to be the, to get your winnings. So our winning person for Legacy is Mary out in Mansfield with 5 open houses. So great job, Mary. And really great job for everyone for all your participation. I used to do a contest actually every single month. So we always did something different, something fun, completely off the wall, not related to open house, just something entirely different. And we just kind of stopped doing it because, and I probably stopped doing it about 1.5 years ago, because it was like the same 3 people winning all the time. And like no one else even tried to participate anymore, because then it was like, well, we know that the person's going to win. So no point in trying. And so I kind of just stopped doing it, but I think it was a kind of a fun little thing. And maybe we'll do it, maybe 3 times, 4 times a year.
Or I think it'll be good.
Yeah. And so we'll come up with the next one for the winter. And again, I don't think we'll do it connected to open house. We'll do something else, just a fun little competition. As we are salespeople and have that competitive nature. So, all right, well, let's just jump right in. I'm going to do a share screen real quick because we also have a guest here. So this information, guys, is also in the Google Drive. So you can have access to it there. Let me, hop in. I can only see some of you, so please feel free to at any time unmute yourself and jump in with a question. So just a couple of things in here I wanted to show you, but let's start with this. Holding a successful open house requires a lot of steps. And so it's not just holding an open house, it's holding a successful one. And, I love the differences of all 3 market centers and the opinions of what we all think is successful. And it just goes to show how very different, just being 45 minutes to an hour apart, how different open houses can be in different places. So let's start with that. Choosing the right house and the right location can make a huge, huge difference in the success of your open. So like, for example, sometimes the most expensive house isn't the best house to hold open. One, sellers of really expensive homes don't typically want that anyway, and there just isn't a lot of buyers for it. So be careful of assuming that the most expensive, nice houses are the ones to target. You might get a lot of traffic and potentially pick up a buyer, but it's a lot more looky-loo type people. So picking the right property is part of the success of hosting a successful open house. And then how do you find them? So we talked about this a lot the past 4 weeks because you guys were mostly newish people who don't necessarily have your own listings to be able to host open. It seems real obvious. Also, by the way, even those of us who've been doing this for a while, 3.5 years ago, maybe now, at any given moment, I would have had 20 listings at one time. And that wasn't because I was just killing it with listings. I promise it wasn't. I sold as many houses as I did this past couple of years. It was just because they didn't sell. So then you can build up an inventory. So there was always sellers of mine wanting to host an open house. Matter of fact, I used to have to split myself in so many directions because everybody wanted a damn open house on the same day. So that wasn't fun and wasn't easy. So finding an open house, the way, we've recommended that you guys do it, who don't have listings of your own, just to obviously be able to have a fallback, is to research. So go into the MLS, go into your market center's listings. That would be your starting point. It doesn't mean it has to only be your market center. I would try to stick with KW. Sammy can share with us. I know he had some situations with some other brokerages that were totally open to him hosting, and others that were like, what the hell do you want? So totally an option. Also for sale by owners. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago in the for sale by owner class. Hosting an open house for sale by owner is a thing. It is part of the scripts that we have in there for sale by owners. Is at one point asked, how's open houses going and would you like me to host one for you? It's a great way to get a leg in the door. In any case, finding listings in your brokerage that you might reach out to the agent and ask. But targeting a particular price range and area that you're trying to work in is a great idea. And then it starts early in the week. So obviously, the sooner you can find the house that you're going to hold open, the better, because you really ideally should have your signage out by Wednesday for a Saturday or Sunday open. Not always possible. Some houses don't go on the market till Friday. So, but when possible, to have that most successful turnout, you also want to invest in as many open directionals and just a lot of directionals that you can anyway, and have one at every entrance of the neighborhood. Another little tip on that before I dive into some of the literature here is this. I had a girl at Legacy that did a really, really, really good job. Most of her business actually came from open house a couple years ago, and she got a lot of listings from her open house because she put no fewer than 8 directionals up for every single open house, no fewer than 8. And therefore, even if there was only one entrance, she was putting them everywhere pointing in. Now, obviously, that doesn't work out if the house is on the corner and there's no place, to put them. But what she did, though, what really got her a lot of listing business was she created these cute little treat bags. And there was some kind of a cute little card that says, and I forget exactly how it was worded, but something like thank you in a cute way. For letting me put my directional sign in your yard. So not just assuming that it's okay to stick your directionals up everywhere, and then you're spending $25 at minimum on each of those directionals, and then they start to disappear. Especially if you're going to put them up days before, and then you go and you're like, where's all my signs? So you should take it as an opportunity. Not all of us like door knocking, especially if you don't know what you're door knocking about. So if you're going to knock on someone's door and say, hey, I'm the agent who's going to be hosting your neighbor's house up the street, the so-and-sos, it's a good idea to make those connections. You'll want to say that person's name. Maybe they know them, maybe they don't. And I would just say, maybe you know the Smiths over at 1234 Portage Street or whatever. And I'm going to be hosting an open. And if I wonder is okay, if I can put a directional, on your tree lawn or on the corner of your lawn or whatever. Some cities prohibit it, so be careful with that. Or they'll just literally plow them over with either plow trucks in the wintertime or lawn mowers in the summertime. So sometimes you can find them at the township, like in some type of a fenced in area where they keep all of our signs or something, but in any case, it's a great opportunity to door knock and have a reason to introduce yourself with some of your cards and give them a little thank you treat bag saying, I appreciate you letting me put up my sign. Here's an example of a door hanger that a team uses. I wanted to show you guys, and I wanted to show you this because this was created in Command. So this could totally be created in Command. So another really great way to invite people to your open isn't just putting up signs. And it also isn't just doing social media posts that you either boost or you don't boost. Going out the night before or early in the morning, the day of, I honestly prefer the night before, or even when you're going out to put up your signs, to put these door hangers on the neighbors' doors is an invite. It's an invitation. On the back side of this, I do believe this is the one that has it. It says special sneak peek for the neighbors. And then now my open house is going to be 30 minutes before the actual marketed time for a special sneak peek for the neighbors. And why would you do that? Well, because we all think this, oh no, they're just nosy neighbors. Well, nosy neighbors are potential clients. They're potential people that could sell their house. So why not take that opportunity and invite them rather than, I don't know about you guys, I haven't done open in a long time, but when I'm at an open house or have been in an open house and it's a neighbor, they're kind of like, oh, don't look at me and don't waste your time on me. I'm just a nosy neighbor. I've always wanted to see this house. Or they just don't tell you the truth about it, but they feel really embarrassed to be there. So imagine how much you can change that impression for them by inviting them to the open house. So you can either door knock or you can just hang these on their door. You cannot hang them on someone's mailbox. It's the same as, flyers or anything like that. You can't put on their mailbox. And you don't have to do the whole neighborhood. So if it sounds like, oh gosh, this is a lot of print money, pick 10 houses then. Like you can totally do 5 on this side, 5 on that side, whatever, do every other house, get creative with it. It doesn't really matter. Let's see here. He's right in my way.
Hey, Gina, I have a question real quick.
Go ahead.
Why can you not hang it on a mailbox? Is there like a law prohibiting that or what?
Can't put anything in or on anyone's mailbox ever.
Okay.
Yep. And so that means that and let me also ask this. Do you think that, not that people get the newspaper, but sometimes you can see that mailbox that was for like newspapers. Do you think you can hang something or put something in that mailbox? No. You absolutely do not have permission. And you can be fined a lot of money by putting something in someone's mailbox or even hanging, like I've seen people hang it on that little like flag that goes up. It's a big no, never touch someone's mailbox ever for any reason. Unless the seller gives you permission to put the extra keys in the box or something like that. That's not the same thing. You can't market to someone by touching their mailbox. And you have to also be careful if the neighborhood says no soliciting. If it says no soliciting, you don't want to farm that neighborhood door to door. You can mail to them, but you can't hang door hangers. You can't do anything like that. You also have to be careful. A lot of neighborhoods have cluster boxes, and you have to be careful on putting things on someone's clusters box without permission. You can also get in trouble for that because that's also owned by the post office. Okay, does that answer your question? So in here, we've got some scripts on open house. So we've got a couple different scenarios with a couple different scripts that you guys can use. I'm not going to go through a ton of them because we've got a lot of information to go over today, but I just wanted you guys to see that we have a good amount of scripts in here for open house, as well as a sign-in sheet. So a couple people do a few different things. Like I would say in Keller Williams in Command, you can find just a generic one. This isn't very old and not positioned properly sign-in sheet that I had in here. have a sign-in sheet. I think I've mentioned to you guys before that there's some questions that you can put on it. Here, when you go to open house, you should always sign in first on the top line with a fake name and information. Why do you think you should do that? Well, that too. Yeah. So if I sign in across the top here and I fill out every single thing, live in a monkey see, monkey do society, everybody will follow suit. What I've noticed, and I've actually had someone talk about this in a Dominate Your Week, is if 3 people sign in and they fill out all this information and one person leaves off their phone number, everybody else beneath them does the same. I can't understand it. I've tested it out myself just because I'm goofy like that to see what would happen. And sure enough, every single time. If someone doesn't put a phone number, when they leave, I write a fake phone number. And then I make a note to myself that line 3 is a fake phone number, because I don't want everybody else to follow suit. I can tell you a couple other examples that I've seen people do in a highly successful way is have a bunch of clipboards, and rather than a sign-in sheet, hand a clipboard to a buyer that has information for them to sign in, but also to answer 5 or 6 questions about feedback for the seller. It's a great way for one to get feedback, and then they leave you with the clipboard. But it's also another thing that, anybody who's walking to the open house that's potentially a buyer is also potentially a seller. Wouldn't we agree that most people buying are also selling and vice versa? And they're going to like the different things that you do. So if they're bouncing around from one open house to another, you have to be different. You have to do something different. We've got a girl at Legacy that for whatever reason in the summertime, she doesn't like to go in the house. And she sets up a lemonade stand at the front porch with all her stuff right there with her clipboards and sign-in sheets and lemonade. And she stands outside talking to people as they come in and out. It's just her thing. And it works for her. She gets a great turnout, and she never even goes in the house, which I think is a little strange, but in any case, it works for her. So just test it out and see what works. She invites the neighbors to come to her little lemonade stand. Go ahead.
Another question, do you have on, sign sheets?
I agree. Mhm.
Verbiage, what should be putting?
So what I would put, because I don't have that, this is a really old one, but I would put some kind of a disclaimer on your sign-in sheet saying that by signing in and giving me your information, you've given me permission to call you. So if they've given you permission to call, then you don't have to cross-reference that with a do not call list.
A lot of people are at that meeting.
Yeah.
Or know what we're talking about with that.
Yeah, so Gary Keller had to write a big fat check of $40 million to someone who sued the company because of agents breaking the do not call list rule. There are people out there that I don't think this person was offended that they got a call. They were looking for someone to sue. They're professional suers, basically, if that's a word. Yeah. All right. Some other basic scripts, but I can tell you one thing. I typically, or my script, and I want to jump into this other packet here. I typically use the LP Mama script open house. I think it's the single most important buyer script. I say it over and over again. I would have a LP Mama script on a stack of, like a bunch of them on a clipboard. And if you don't know what to ask, those are the questions. So does everyone know what LP Mama stands for? Yes, no, yes. So we'll just quickly roll through it. So this house is in Canton, Ohio. Is that the location that you're looking? L is for location. The LP Mama script's in the drive. And now what you're doing is you're getting people to have a conversation with you by giving them information and asking a question. So it's obviously stating the obvious. This home is in Strongsville. Is this the location you're looking, or are you looking in other locations? So it sounds better than where are you looking for a house? It prompts them to answer. The price of this house is $250,000. Is that the price range that you're looking? So the P is for price. And then just start asking the other questions on the LP Mama script, rolling through as you're walking through. I'm not standing at the door doing that. I'm talking about that as we're walking through the house. And if someone ever gives you a hard time signing in or doesn't feel like they want to sign in, I don't even give them a chance. It's not a question. The script for getting people to sign in is this. The seller of the house requires every guest sign in to their home. So now they're really going to be a jerk if they say no. It's one thing to think I need you to sign in for my personal gain versus the seller of the house requires everyone sign in that, visits their home. It's totally up to you whether you tour the house with them or not. If I'm able, I do. I would. When you have 20, 30 people, it's impossible to do so. It's more important that you're greeting everyone, but I like to still tour people through, even if they get weird about me doing it. I don't care. You're in someone's home, I'm going to tour through. A couple other things I want to mention before we jump through this. Having the seller have things prepared for the open house is also really important. Please have all your lamps and lights on. Please make sure that the house is clean. Please make sure that the walk is shoveled in the wintertime. Make sure, I don't particularly care for candles burning in the open house. I don't want to be responsible for their cat jumping across the table and the next thing you know, the house burned down and I was the last person there, So I will go around and I'll actually blow out their candles if they have candles lit. You can choose to bring refreshments. I don't really think that makes a difference either way. It's totally up to you. Having a successful open house means I've got a good amount of people to sign in and their contact information, and I have an opportunity to work with these people. I don't think that having bottled water and cookies is going to make them sign in any more than if you don't have it. But smell is a big deal. I used to work for a builder, Schumacher Homes, and I used to have an apple pie that was frozen that I put in the microwave and just opened up the microwave door and kind of aired it through the house in the model homes. So that's a way to kind of hit people's senses with that. And of course, nobody eats the pie because it's disgusting and it's been in the microwave. But that's one way to do it. Some people like to bring music to play in the open house, and that's entirely up to you and whatever that vision is for you. Having a presence on social media for your open house is also really important. If people aren't driving by, how else are they going to hear about the open house? If it's not your listing, you want to make sure that the listing agent knows that they need to go onto the MLS and put that open house out there, because then it'll go off to all the different websites through the MLS as well. And then just creating your post, and I would recommend testing it out, boosting a post versus not boosting a post. It makes a huge difference. I've had someone tell me that they didn't boost one week and they had 4 people, and then they boosted the next week and they had 40. So it makes a big difference there. I'm going to quickly go through this because I want our guests to be able to come on up and talk to us. But in the drive as well, here's some great tips right through. I got this right from Connect through Command that talks about a checklist of things that you can follow before your open house. Lots of great other examples of sign-in sheets and different things that you can be using. This one I particularly like. I can make that bigger. Maybe not. It goes through the different activities that you can do each day of the week to be prepared for your open house. Sorry, for some reason it's got 2 on one page and I can't make it bigger. Questions about any of that? All right, I'm going to do a stop share.
I sent in the Viber chat the law that states it's a $5,000 fine for individual and $10,000 per company.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Did you hear that, guys? Sarah put in the chat the law about putting stuff on someone's mailbox. So, all right. So we'd like to invite Rich on up to talk to us about, he hosts really good open houses. So we thought that he can come and share what he knows. So I'm going to just turn it over to you.
Can I sit in your spot?
You can sit in my spot.
Feel honored to sit in the spot. So I have 5 questions. Always try to come up with a different way each time. If you were at the 6-figure class that I did maybe a month or so ago, I touched on some of these. But I have 5 questions that I want to ask you about your open houses. These are 5 questions that I feel you should ask when you're going to be doing an open house. And moving forward, these are 5 questions so with our team, these are 5 questions that I require each agent on the team to be able to answer when they're doing an open house. Because I feel that if you're going to spend an hour and a half or 3 hours in somebody's house, that you have a goal as to why you're there. Otherwise, you're wasting your time, right? So the first question, and feel free to write these down and stop me if you have a question. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep going. So the first question is, what is your goal of the open house? Okay. What is your goal of the open house? Are you hosting the open house to get buyers? Are you hosting the open house to attract sellers? Do you have a set number of leads that you're looking to acquire? And the last question about what your goal is does your calendar match your goal? And we're going to go into that in step 3 here. So is your goal to attract buyers? Let's talk about that for a second. I would say 99% of buyers start their home search online, and about 80% of them will not contact a real estate agent until they're ready to start touring homes. Okay. So our goal, if we're going to attract buyers at an open house, is to be the most presentable version of ourselves as we can be, right? Now, what we're starting to see, and probably historically, probably last 5 or 7 years, is we're noticing that sellers are interviewing agents at open houses, and agents don't know they're being interviewed because they're focused on attracting buyers. Okay. So if you're going to show up to an open house in shorts and a t-shirt, or shorts and flip-flops to an open house, one, I'm going to slap the crap out of you. But 2, is that the best representation of yourself if somebody's walking in and you don't know they have a home to sell, right? And if you're going to do an open house to attract sellers, wouldn't it be advantageous to do everything that you possibly could in steps 3, 4, and 5 here to really attract and to showcase why they should invite you into their home? Okay. Most people that I talk to, most people that I coach that have been on the team, off the team in every state that I've worked, is they don't have a desired number of leads that they want to achieve from their open house. Most people say, I'm going to do an open house on Saturday from 11 to 1, and I'm going to stand inside this house and I'm going to do my thing. And if people come in, great. And if they don't, well, I wasted my time. I argue and I push back that your goal should be a number. I always say 4 people. Okay. Some of you might look at and say 4 and say, well, that's not really a lot of people. If you have 20 people show up to an open house, it's extremely unrealistic that you're going to be able to make a connection with 20 people. If 4 people come into your open house over your hour and a half, do you think you can make a connection with 4 of them? Do you think if 20 people show up, do you think you can make a connection with 4 of them? You don't have to make a connection with everybody, right? So my goal is always 4. And the reason I say 4 is because I believe that 25% of the people that you're going to actually meet with are going to transact in real estate at some point, right? So if you do an open house every single weekend or every single week, and you attract 4 people each week, each open house, over the course of the month, you're going to attract 16 people, right? Now, if 25% of those people are actually going to do something real estate wise, buy, sell, whatever, that means you're going to have 4 pieces of business each month with an average sales price of $250,000 in Northeast Ohio, with an average commission of $67.50. Multiply that by 4, that's $24,000 in change that you can earn per month hosting an open house, if your goal is only 4 people. Does that make sense? The other reason I suggest 4 people is as you build your open house, that's if you get more than 4, great. If you get less than 4, don't beat yourself up because you only need 1, right? But if you get 16 people a month that you're going to be able to bond with, that's 32 people in 2 months. Keep doing the math. This multiplies. You've just gone from a potentially a new agent with nobody in your database to consistently hosting an open house with the goal of 4. Who has a calculator on them real fast? What is 16 times 12? 192 people in 1 year just from adding 4 people from an open house. It's that fast, right? But that allows you to then build connections with people that you actually might transact real estate with, rather than getting so overwhelmed and beating yourself up that 30 people came into your open house and you only had 4 leads. Well, if my goal was 4 and 30 people showed up and I got more than that, great, but my goal was 4. Does that make sense? Based on that math. And then, so we're going to talk about more of the plan, but just make a note of and write this down. Does your calendar match your goal? Does your calendar match your goal? So the second question that I want to ask you about hosting an open house is, where do you want to work? Where do you want to work? I asked you that question because years ago I had an agent on my team that they lived in Parma and they were going to host an open house in Paynesville. It was like a 50-minute drive from Parma to Paynesville. And they were going to be there for 3 hours. It was from back when open houses were from 1 to 4 on Sundays. And it was the worst experience of your life, right? So not only are you there for 3 hours, but you have an hour drive there and an hour drive back. So now your 3-hour open house just turned into 5 hours, okay? Not only is that just a really far, it's a lot of time for an open house, but the question that I'm going to ask you is, do you actually want to sell real estate in Paynesville? If the answer is no, be selfish and say no. Focus on holding open houses where you want to work. Focus on where you want to work. The next thing about where is it that you want to work? Is there a price point that you want to work in? When I was 23 years old and I got into real estate, I thought a $300,000 house was the biggest house in the entire world. I was terrified at 23 years old because all my friends were buying $115,000 houses. I spent a lot of time doing open houses in $100,000 properties until I was comfortable enough that I wanted to increase my sales price. Does that make sense? So focus on where you want to work and what price point you want to work in. A really easy way to do this is if you want to sell in, I don't know, let's say you want to sell in Strongsville or Brunswick or wherever, go look at the stats and see what price point is moving. The price point that's moving is the price point you want to hold your open houses in. Does that make sense? That's where the buyers are. Go where the buyers are. Luxury real estate is amazing and it's super awesome. And if you ever have the opportunity to sell a luxury property, it pays nicely. However, the buyer pool in a luxury property is way smaller than the buyer pool of a $250,000 Brunswick property. Does that make sense? Where you want to work also needs to know, you need to focus on your brand in where you want to work. If you're going to host if you live in Parma and you're going to host an open house in Paynesville, that's a lot of work to build your brand in a location you don't really want to work in, right? So if you want to really build your brand in a community, in a neighborhood, focus on the community and focus on the neighborhood. And then, my last point there, is simply to be selfish and allow yourself to say no. You don't have to, if you don't want to hold an open house at that particular property, bow out gracefully. Thank you for the opportunity, but it's not really in an area that I'm really focusing in right now. Give yourself the grace to say no. The third question that I would ask you is, do you have a plan? Gina mentioned it a little bit prior, and I would put $100 on this that says the work you do before the open house is more important than the open house itself, right? The agent that shows up 5 minutes before the open house starts that is completely frantic. They're not even wearing matching shoes. There's a lineup of cars in the street. They don't even have signs out yet. They run into the house. The buyers follow them. It's a shit show. Sorry, I swear. I apologize. I told myself this morning, I can watch your language. That's the best word that's come out of my mouth. If you're not doing the work leading into the open house, don't waste your time doing the open house. Okay. With your plan, in shift, I can't remember the name, I can't remember what page it's on, but there's the 7th level open house. If you're not doing at least level 4, really ask yourself, why am I doing this? Okay. Gina mentioned inviting the neighbors. I'm a big believer in the 10-10-20. 10 to the left, 10 to the right, 20 across the street. You don't have to, I live in a neighborhood of 611 homes. I don't ever expect anybody to door knock 611 homes and invite them to the open house. But you can invite 30 or 40 people. Right? And the greatest script I was ever given about this was, don't even, if you're not going to actually invite them to the open house, ask them to watch out for your safety.
I love that video.
Hey, it's Rich. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm holding 123 Main Street open on Sunday from 11 to 1. I'm not asking you for anything, but if you notice my car's still there at like 1:15, do you mind coming and just knocking on the door and making sure I'm okay? Here's why that script is amazing. The nosiest people in the world are the neighbors. And if you ask them to help ensure your safety, guess what they're going to do? They're going to ensure your safety. And it's God's honest truth. It's happened at 1:15. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, I noticed your car was still there. I just want to make sure you're okay. It's a non-aggressive way of saying, hey, my name's Rich. I'm a local realtor. I'm holding this house open next door. It's a really great way to have that conversation from a non-aggressive salesperson's way. Okay. Part of your plan. This is a non-negotiable. If you work with me and my team, your open house is picked by Wednesday. Marketing starts on Wednesday. Door knocking takes place on Thursday. Circle prospecting takes place on Friday. You know what? Everybody know what circle prospecting is? Okay, so if you don't know what circle prospecting is, some people call it geofarming. There's different words for it. Circle prospecting is when you're around an area and you're calling. It could be, hey, I have a buyer that's looking to live in your neighborhood. Who do you know that might be interested in selling? In the instance of an open house, it would be, hey, this is Rich. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm going to be hosting 123 Main Street, an open house. It's a new listing right around the corner from you. I'm sure it's not for you, but if there's anybody that you know looking to move into your neighborhood, it might be a great opportunity for them. I use the takeaway script when I'm circle calling or circle dialing because it takes the pressure off of myself as the call. I feel that it's not a pressured call then. And then it also takes the pressure off of them. When you're saying, I'm sure it's not for you. Nobody likes when things are taken away from them. So as soon as you say, I'm sure it's not for you, in their mind is, well, maybe it is. Okay. That takes place on Friday. And then signs go, if the open house is on Saturday, signs go out on Friday. If the open house is on Sunday, signs go out on Saturday. My opinion on the signs is different than other people. I feel like they're very inexpensive. I'd rather put them out and have them taken away versus not putting them out early enough and missing an opportunity. That's my school of thought on it. I'm also the guy that's paying for the signs. The fourth question that I would ask, how are we doing on time? What time are we done?
We've got 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. I'm flying through this. So
Good.
if you have questions, stop me. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
The fourth question that I would ask you is, do you know your conversations? Do you know your conversations? People use the word scripts. I wrote down scripts, but what I meant was conversations. I have spent an enormous amount of time in my career asking the wrong questions. I've spent an enormous amount of time in my career trying to ask better questions. For example, somebody walks into your open house. What's the first thing you say to them? Most agents are going to say something of, "Hi, I'm Rich. Welcome to my open house. Please make sure you go and sign in." And then they start talking, and the seller's like, or the buyer's like, "I don't care. I'm here to see the house." Right? First question I always ask is, "What brings you in today?" The second question I always ask is, how did you come to the house? The reason I want to know that is, well, obviously they either drove or they walked, right? If they walked, guess where they came from? If they drove, well, guess where they came from? Not the neighborhood. Right? But I want to know how you got to the house. And I was like, oh, you drove. Where is it that you're coming from? I want to, I'm down in Parma, in Strongsville, Brunswick, Canton, wherever, right? I'm trying to engage in conversation. Okay. And I'm asking questions that lead into, feel free to take a look around the property. Here's an information sheet. When you go upstairs, you're really going to want to look out the view of the master bedroom. You're going to love the view of the wooded backyard or whatever that is. I always make sure in my conversations that there's a focal point in the home that I can direct them to. So now when they go see that and they come back up and I see them again, guess what? It's no longer an awkward conversation. What do you think of the view outside of that bedroom? Oh, it was great. Can't you imagine waking up and seeing that every day? I'm engaging in conversation, right? It's all about the conversations that we're asking. LP Mama is a great script, and it's a great conversational piece, right? Location, what's your motivation? Are you working with an agent? Are you getting a mortgage? I'd love to sit down and have a conversation. But keep in mind that as we're hosting this open house, we are also the salesperson at Macy's, Nordstrom, Saks, Dillard's, The Buckle. Pick your store. You walk in, salesperson comes right up in your face. How are you? I'm good. I'm just looking. Every single time. That's the question. And every single time that's the answer. Right? So how can I avoid being the salesperson? And how can I provide value along the way that's different than everybody else? When I host an open house and when a member of my team hosts an open house, we want an experience unlike any other. And the only way we can do that is by asking great questions. I am also, because my goal is to get 4 people to sign into my open house. I take a very different school of thought than Gina. So I'm not going to tell you that I don't care if you sign in or not. I'm not going to tell you that I don't care. With that said, I care more about building a relationship with 4 people than I do about Bob Smith who didn't sign in. Does that make sense? Now, Gina wants everybody to sign in. Go with that model. Go with that. For each person. As you build your business, you're going to get comfortable one way or the other. There's not a right way or a wrong way. It's just how I've decided to build my business because I only care about 4 people. Does that make sense? For me, it's less stress. Another really great question to ask at the conclusion of their tour. How is this home different than your house? Notice the difference of home versus house. When we use the word home, what feelings do you have?
Comfort.
Comfort. When we use the word house, what feelings do you have?
Structure.
It's a thing, right? People don't go to their house, they go home, right? So how does this home differ from your house? The reason I'm asking that question is because it's open-ended enough that they're going to say, well, our house has a first floor master, this one doesn't. In your next home, do you prefer a first floor master? Right? Well, this house doesn't have a fenced in yard. We have to have a fenced in yard because we have 2 really big dogs. Well, this neighborhood might not work for you because fences aren't permitted. But I know of other neighborhoods in the area where you can put up a fence if that's of interest to you, right? We really need, this house is a 3-car garage. We have a 2. Would you love a 3rd-car garage since you can't have sheds? Right? It's understanding what separates where they're at from where you're at. Because if their house is an apartment, is a 2-bedroom apartment, and this is a 5-bedroom home, and they tell you that, guess what? They're transitioning in life. They're going from an apartment into a home, and it's not a 3-bedroom, it's a 5-bedroom. Why is a 5-bedroom home important to you? Well, we both work from home. We both have to have an office. Do you need 2 dedicated office spaces, or could you use a second bed, a spare bedroom as an additional office? All of the questions that we ask is to get them to talk so that we can hear what they're saying, not necessarily to respond, but to follow up with another question. Does that make sense? Follow me? And then the 5th and final question that I always ask the members of our team is, do I have enough signs? There is a non-negotiable with CHS that you must put 10 signs out at your open house. It's a non-negotiable. And I get pushback but it's really easy to find the house. I don't care. I grew up with a garage sailing grandmother that would go 4 miles away from her house and put up garage sale signs. She lived deep into a neighborhood where not only did she direct you from 4 different ways to get in, but she also had signs in the neighborhood letting you know that you were almost there. So she had her directional arrows that would lead you in from the main artery into her neighborhood, right? And you might have done this trying to get to a friend's house or something. Or and if you haven't, you know somebody that has, where they're driving and you're like, did I miss the street? I've been driving in this neighborhood forever. I have no idea where I'm at. Some people give up, turn around and go home. Because they're like, I passed it, I'm over. But if you're driving down this neighborhood and the home that you're holding an open house for is deep in this community, there was a sign that said, keep going. I'm going to keep going. And if you kept going, you're like, man, I feel like I missed it again. There's another sign that said almost there. And then you're like, oh, we're almost there. And then you get to the house and there's the arrows and there's the balloons and there's the flag, and it's an event. That if you didn't have enough signs, they never would have made it to the house. So we have a 10 sign minimum for our team. And I often wonder if 10 signs is not enough. I believe that you could never have enough signs pointing people to the property.
Right.
He does.
25 minimum.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Florida, the guy in Florida.
No, here.
He's speaking next Tuesday from 12 to 1 or something.
Well, and Troy's business, he does a lot in Lakewood, right? So it's little blocks. It's little blocks along the way. So you have to have enough arrows. So somebody once asked me, they're like, Rich, how do you know if 10's enough? I'm like, have you heard of this thing called Google? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, great. Go to google.com and now type in the address. And I'm like, okay, 123 Banana Street. I'm like, all right, now there's a button. It says maps. Click that button. And I'm like, all right, great. I'm like, what do you see? And they're like, a map. I'm like, awesome. Is the house on the map? And they're like, yeah. And I go, awesome. Now figure out how many signs you need. And it's that simple. It's that simple, right? If you go back to where do I want to work, and you're being selfish and you're focusing on the price point that you want and you're building your brand, your open house arrows should have your name on it. You might even want to put your face on it. Be selfish. Be selfish. This is your business that you're building. And if you're taking your time on an evening or a weekend, I'm dead serious when I say this. There are other ways I'd rather waste my time than holding an open house. If I'm not going to do it and do it right, why do it? I'd rather golf. I'd rather play with my kids. I'd rather take a nap. I'd rather go see a movie. I'd rather do anything other than holding an open house. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about any of these 5 questions? Anything you want me to dive deeper in? I know I covered a lot. I talked really fast.
What do you do when the people come in that have realtors or they bring their realtors with them?
Awesome. I'm so happy. Great to meet you. So just as I'm just looking is what we say when we go to Macy's, right? I have an agent is also what they say when they think that you're trying to get them to work with you. Okay. So in that role play, right? I would say, oh, are you working with an agent? And they're like, oh, yeah, I am. I'm like, great. Who are they? I'd love to let them know that you came. If they can't tell me that agent's name like that, they're not working with an agent. And I firmly believe that. Or they're going to be like, oh, it's Steve. Oh, yeah, Steve. What company does Steve work for? Oh, Remax. Oh, awesome. What do you know Steve's last name? Off the top of my head, I can't remember it. Okay, you're not working with Steve. You know it's Steve, and you know Remax. You don't know Steve at Remax. Or I'm willing to bet that you don't, right? I like my odds. I like my odds at bat versus somebody else. That doesn't mean I'm not going to follow up with them, right? The reason I want to know what your agent's name is when you come into the open house is so that I can call them after when I do my follow-up and say, hey, Sarah, your buyer Jim just came into my open house at 123 Banana Street. I just wanted to give you the courtesy of letting you know they seemed like they might have been interested. You might want to follow up with them. I'm doing that to build rapport, but I'm also doing that to fact check. Oh, who's your agent? Sarah Medrick. Oh, okay. I love Sarah. She's awesome. She's a great person. Sarah, your client, Steve, came into our open house. I'm not working with the Steve. Okay, thanks. All I need to know. Great chat with you.
We've had that conversation before.
It happens though, right? Most people know another real estate agent. How quickly can their name come to mind? Because if you're working with me, you have an open house script that I've given you that we've talked about for when you go into another agent's open house. I just take my odds. Does that make sense? What are their questions? Guys on Zoom. Oh, how does it go? There's a chat thing. What are some questions that you ask yourself to determine what market you want to work in? That's a great question, Ben. Ben, where are you? Where are you on here? Say hello.
Oh.
Hello.
See him.
Oh, hi, Ben. Turn your camera on, dude.
See him.
Yeah, one sec.
You're big at now.
Hell yeah, I am. I want to know who I'm talking to. Well, Ben's turning his camera on. Does anybody else have a question? So I want to have a bit about it. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're supposed to put the signs up like the day before, whatever, however long before you want to, but like all of my signs just say open house. So I always feel like if I'm going to put the signs up on Friday, you know, they're going to see the sign that says open house and they're going to go there on Friday and there's no open house there. Like, should I have signs that say open, you know, Saturday, or is that not, shouldn't I worry about that?
So great question. What market center are you out of?
Legacy.
Awesome. Great to meet you, by the way. I always ask the listing agent, if this is, so let's say somebody's doing an open house for somebody else's listing. I want to say, hey, are you going to put a sign out that says open on Saturday from 11 to 1? Okay. If they're too lazy and they're not going to do that, my recommendation would be to find a local sign shop and have just a sign, like a normal sign, right? Just like one that you can stick with the stakes, and just say an open house Saturday 11 to 1 or whatever, right? Like I say open house Saturday from 11 to 1 because that's like the hot open house time right now. It used to be Sundays from 1 to 4. Now it's Saturdays from 11 to 1. So whatever time you're going to do that, you do your open houses, maybe have a little sign made that you can put in the yard when you're putting out your signs to direct traffic to the house that says open house Saturday from 11 to 1 or Sunday 2 to 4 or whatever that is. And then just have that in your arsenal.
It could,
Okay, so
it could also
basically-
be sales.
Yeah, it could be a rider as well.
Yeah,
but you know,
I have riders and stuff, but so basically all I need was the one sign at the house that says open Saturday.
say that again. I'm sorry.
So basically, would all I need be the one sign that says open Saturday at the house, and all the others can just be directionals that just say open with maybe my number
Yeah,
on
that's
them?
exactly what I would do. That's
Okay,
exactly what I would do. There's a team out of the citywide office in Westlake. So they have their open house sign, right? And then they have stakes that come out on top that say Saturday 11 to 1 or Sunday 2 to 4, whatever it is that go on top of their generic open house arrow. That I've seen that be a success. But to me, I believe that if I can put my signs out prior to the open house, there are people that are going to drive by to, one, see if the style of the house is something that they're interested in, or two, they want to find out where the house is to see if it's in an area they want to live. Right. So that's where I want to have that in front of the house as well. Great question. Ben, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Go. So ask me your question.
So I've been trying to narrow down what market I want to put in, and I've been trying to ask myself questions about what I guess I value for that. And I was just wondering what you ask yourself to determine those answers.
Well, I think it really boils down to where do you want to see yourself working, right? What community do you live in?
I live in North Canton.
You live in North Canton, okay. So North Canton, there's probably a price point that's super hot right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you know what that
floating around,
price point is off the top of your head?
like 150, 200 is really
150, 200, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if that's where you want to be, then I would do open houses in that 150 to 200 price point.
Okay.
If you want to be in Green rather than in North Canton, or if you want to be, pick another community right outside of North Canton, then I would go there.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I guess from my perspective, if for you to live in North Canton and to do an open house in Fairlawn probably doesn't make sense for your business.
Correct. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, of course, you're planning on moving to Fairlawn and that's where you want to work.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, ideally, I'm just starting getting into open houses. We had that competition going on and everything, and I didn't get to participate in it, but I chose not to. Not saying that I wasn't able to. But I've been trying to figure out where I want to like really market myself, and I want to be able to drive, I guess, like an hour away for stuff I really want, but then all the meat and potato stuff be like within 30 minutes.
Well, and so I would say that, listen, I will sell a house anywhere in the state of Ohio.
Sure.
Okay. But if I'm going to do an open house, I want to make sure it's in an area that I'm okay driving to more than once. The reason I say that is and I'll just use the Fairlawn example for you, right? You live in North Canton, your drive to Fairlawn is how long?
Yeah, 40, 45 minutes.
Okay,
Hour,
30,
bad
45
traffic.
minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and depending on traffic, and 77's all torn up right now, and it's a nightmare going from Fairlawn to Canton, right?
Yeah.
So if you were to pick up a buyer there that was and that 150 to 200 price point, and you had to go up there 6, 7, 8 times to show property, you'd probably get frustrated. Now, I'm not saying that you wouldn't do it, but I think you'd be more inclined to drive 15 minutes 6 to 8 times than you would 45 minutes 6 to 8 times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I used to have a job I worked for like an hour away, and once I changed jobs and didn't have that drive, like it was just a weight lifted off you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think to Rich's point, to drive someplace one time to show a house and get a sale is one thing, but to try to develop relationships from a marketed open house that you've picked up 4 to 8 buyers, now you're running back and forth there. I also don't recommend people take listings that are an hour away from their home. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know the market. I don't live in the market. I know as new people, we just want to take whatever we can get our hands on, but then you're going to start to go there all the time. And to your point with the signs,
I think they froze.
Okay, it's not working for you either.
No.
Okay, because it was definitely not working for me. I can't. I think it's completely off the screen now. Like, I think it's like completely off there.
Oh, I wonder if it was time since it's past 12. Maybe it just like ended the meeting.
Oh.
Yeah, that was
It
kind of
shouldn't
weird.
have- It shouldn't have kicked them off though.
Well, if it was like a scheduled conference room and somebody else had it afterwards, it might have switched over to their meeting or something like that.
It probably did.
Yeah, but the Zoom wouldn't cancel them. Or it shouldn't.
Depends on how they have their network room set up.
Yeah, I know ours doesn't do that at Living.
Well,
No.
good.
Oh,
They're
Okay.
coming back.
They just
Yeah,
popped
they're
back
back.
in. You're
you have-
muted.
You're muted, Legacy.
I think I hear.
They're muted. You guys have to unmute Legacy. Elevate.
That's.
There we go.
So Justin just asked a question and he said, hey, what does it look like when you boost a post for your open house, right? So the reason that we want open houses identified on Wednesday is because when we boost the post inside of Command, it takes a day for Facebook and Command to agree that they're allowed to take my money. So when we boost it on Thursday, if we started the campaign on Wednesday, it goes live on Thursday. That gives me Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday to promote the listing of the open house. And I want to have 24 to, well, really like 48 to 36 hours of that post up and active.
So would you say for Sunday then?
I would still do it. On like if you know that you're doing an open house, on Wednesday for Sunday, I would still start it because you can generate leads. So like they're top of funnel, right? They're top of funnel leads for open houses through Facebook. But again, it's driving traffic in from multiple different areas, right? I would still do it if I'm even regardless of the date of the open house.
So we get them by Wednesday, you get older listings instead of the newer listings.
The reason I want it on Wednesday.
To get open houses by Wednesday, we look for older listings instead of the ones that are just coming up.
No, I do it on Wednesday because of the schedule that I have with the marketing starting on Wednesday, the door knocking on Thursday, the circle prospecting on Friday. That's just the schedule that I've created. In the perfect world, we would stop launching listings on Thursday and putting them under contract on Friday and Saturday. I think that's the worst marketing, the worst job we can do for our sellers is to launch it and then take it off the market just like that. When we're being paid thousands of dollars to market the property to the most amount of people as possible. That's just my opinion. It's just my opinion. So for me, I would.
They do that a lot up here in Columbus. Like they'll put a house on the market for like 24 hours and then it'll be under contract the next day. And it's like really when I'm dealing with buyers, with my buyers, they'll send me the property and then like it'll be gone in the next like day. And I'm like, we can't see it no more.
Yeah. Again, I think this goes back to if you're holding another agent's open house, like I think a conversation that's super important to ask is what are the odds that this open house is going to get canceled before the open house? And if they're like, well, it might, I'm like, well, see, I'm not doing your open house. Like if I'm going to spend my time and my money marketing your listing, I need to know that my open house is actually going to happen. Right? Because the goal of the open house, and this goes back to what is your goal? The goal of the open house is not to sell the house that you're in. Like that is like the behind the curtain of our industry, right? The goal of the open house is to sell another house somewhere else. The house that you're holding open is the bait, if you will, to the fly trap. Does that make sense? Like you don't hang a fly trap and flies don't automatically go to it. You have to hang the fly trap and let it all happen through the marketing and whatever, and then slowly but surely the flies start getting attracted and then they stick to the fly trap. Make sense? So if you're gonna do an open house on this fresh new listing or something, and then on Wednesday you gain commitment to do the open house, and on Saturday morning before the open house gets started, you've spent all this time on marketing. You've created your flyers, you've put out the signs, you've door knocked, you've circle prospected, right? And then you get a text message from the listing agent, hey, sorry, listing's under contract. One, I would never hold another listing open for that listing agent ever again, period, end of conversation. But two, now we're sitting there and we have this we're self-defeated because we just did all this work. And now the open house, the house that we were holding open is sold. Right? So and if really there should have been 6 questions is what do we do when the house is sold? Let's just have that conversation before we get kicked off again. On our team, we have a flyer created. It's a half a sheet of paper. It has the agent's face, their contact information, the property address, and it just says, 123 Banana Street went under contract in X number of days. Who do you know that might be interested in moving to your neighborhood? And during that open house time, that's the conversation that we're having in the neighborhood. Okay, chances are it might have went into multiple offers in this market. That's a very strong chance, right? And we might not know, but if we just spent all this time and all this money and all this effort to promote this listing that we're going to hold open, again, the open house is the culmination of all the work that we just did. So if that gets taken away, what are we going to do with those 2 hours? Well, we're going to go broadcast the fact that that house just went under contract because the listing agent's not doing it. They're going on social media going, look how great I am. I put a sign in the yard and somebody else sold it. Under contract in 2 minutes. Right? Look at the Facebook post. That's what they're doing. And yet you're out there hustling going, hey, 123 Banana Street just went under contract in 3 days. And it might have been in multiple offers. If you find out it was, right, put that on your little sheet. And in multiple offers, there are more people that want to live in your neighborhood. Who's the next person that you think might be selling? That's how I would spend that hour time block.
Mary asks, can you still hold the open house open even if they did put it under contract unless it's marked sold?
That'd be a question for the listing agent and the seller. That'd be a question for the listing agent and the seller. Questions? I don't know. You got a sign on Amazon. Awesome. Can you still hold an open house if the market's sold? So like if they market sold, so I'm a super transparent person. So if they're going on Zillow, which is where they're going, they're not going to your app, they're not going to their website, they're going to Zillow. And they see that it's marked as pending, they're not coming to your open house. That's just my opinion. But
That's
right.
And if it's too late, because it happens the morning of, it's again, like you said, it's up to the listing agent and the seller. The one benefit of hosting it still open, or if someone says, oh my gosh, I wish you would have just put a cancel sign out, why'd I bother coming? You could say the seller's looking for backup.
Yeah.
That would be the one thing. And obviously you can still pick up buyers. So I would recommend it if it was sold on Friday, I'm probably canceling it.
Yeah.
But if it's sold 2 hours before the open and you've marketed it and you boost and your signs are out and you think people will still potentially come, you could say, would you consider a backup offer and still host for that reason?
Yeah. And I think that's where having the conversation with the listing agent before the open house is so important. Of what are the chances this is going to go under contract before the open house? I'm going to do a lot of work leading into it. And then also knowing that if it does, and if you're still okay with the fact that it might go under contract prior to, because they're, if it's a CHS listing, the open house is happening because that's part of our listing presentation. The value that we bring to the seller is that we're going to put as many eyeballs in front of your property as possible. That means we're not accepting an offer before the open house. I don't believe that is in your best interest. Okay. And then I have my multitude of reasons why I don't feel like that's in their best interest. And yet, whatever, sellers do what they want. But as an agent holding that open house, I guess it goes back to the being selfish. You're putting in all the time and the work and the legwork leading into the event. To find out that it gets canceled, I feel like it doesn't do you the benefit unless you take that next step of going and telling the story in the neighborhood that this house was listed, you know, for 3 days and it sold in multiple offers. There are other people that want to live here. Who do you know that might be moving next? Because everybody's got a neighbor they don't like. Like I know who I would want in my neighborhood to move. Does that make sense? Like I know who he is. I know him by name. Does that make sense?
Send that realtor to that person.
Because I want them to move. Right? So if they're like, oh, it's the guy across the street, they're getting a divorce. Neighbors know more than they should about their other neighbors. And if there's a Facebook group, there's all this chatter back and forth, right? Like I live in a neighborhood with 611 homes. People are selling their houses in my Facebook group before the house gets to the market. So if somebody like in my real estate agents that don't live in my neighborhood don't know this. But like homes sell in my neighborhood before they go on the market. So why wouldn't you hold the open house? But if it gets canceled and you door knocked the right house and said, hey, this house was supposed to be held open today, it went under contract, multiple offers. Who's next? Well, let me pull up my Facebook group. I'll tell you. You know what I mean? Like if you're able to build that rapport, why not? Can you still hold on? What other questions do you have? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there any laws on public sidewalks and stuff like that where you can't place signs? Other than HOA and things like that, like on public roads and public sidewalks, is there allowed or not allowed things like that?
That would depend on the city.
Okay.
And I would recommend you reach out to whatever municipality that is to find out their local guidelines there. Unless you're like me and you just want to take a risk and live life dangerously, then you put the sign out and find out that it was taken.
Okay. Okay. And there's something else that I learned from my team in Arizona that I thought it would be nice to mention. My team leader taught me to always put the first signs away from the house, like the farthest, and start going toward the house versus put the sign down, first sign down by the house and then go farther away, because when people come, the sign is already there and I'm not there. I'm somewhere far away putting out the last sign or something. So that
Yeah,
was
and I think in the strategy that you put the signs out the day of the open house, I think that makes perfect sense.
yeah. Okay, yeah, it does. Okay, thank you.
Of course. What other questions? Nothing?
Said a lot. You answered a lot.
I talked fast.
That's good.
I didn't know how much time I had.
Yeah, that's okay. I should have said.
5 questions.
That's right.
Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. All right, you Rich. Thank you so much. That was great. And I too talk fast, so we match up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.